So I've been saying for a while that this channel is going to be having guest hosts, and you'll notice that since I've said that, it's basically just been me. Well, we finally have a guest slash interviewee on. You may already know this person from the Dave Superpowers channel or the Objective Personality Typing System, but even if you don't, we think you're going to like her. We're extremely excited to have her on. I'm not going to turn into too much of a fanboy here, but let's just say she's the poster girl for ENTJs. So generally, I'm curious to know your experience as an ENTJ personality type. But I wanted to break this down into a few different areas. First, let's take this back in time a little bit. I assume that having extroverted thinking and extroverted sensing as your savior functions gives you a kind of restlessness. How did that play out for you when you were growing up in the family environment? And also, how did it affect you in the education system?
Yes, absolutely. Restless. Perfect description. TESE, it's like play energy, the extroverted functions, right? The TE wants to gather skills. The SE wants to gather new information. So absolutely, I was very rambunctious. I was that really, really annoying kid that sat at the front of the classroom that was constantly raising their hand, trying to get the teacher's attention, to get validation, and then gathering in new information to an extreme. Yes, absolutely. That's how my family saw me. That's how my teachers saw me. It actually worked really, really well for me in school because if you think about it, all they want you to do is take in a bunch of useless information, learn it really quick, take a test, and then move on to the next subject, which worked really, really well for me. I did good in school, did good in college. And it wasn't until later on in life when I'm trying to run my own business that those functions didn't serve me as well because the introverted functions, and for me it was NI and FI, I had to use those in order to build because the extroverted functions want to gather, they want to learn new things. The TE wants to make things work for everyone on the outside. But the second you're trying to build your own path, then you have to go in, you have to go dark. You can't just be outside, be out here. It feels very much like the two extroverted functions feel very rudderless, like a leaf in the wind, very movable. Outside world moves you, you move. And then the second you pick a direction and you go that way, you're now causing friction, because you're being the rudder, you're being the ship that is driving in a very specific way. So when it came down to actually being an entrepreneur and doing my own business, that's when things got a lot harder. But absolutely growing up, it worked really, really well. I could gather, I could ask the tribe. The school system was built for people like me. I think like a lot of people do really well in the school system. A lot of people don't. I happen to fit in that realm where I could learn from the teachers, learn from the students, learn new information, just random new information, useless information. And then I had to grow a lot more when it came to entrepreneurship.
ENTJs are always going to have a certain level of masculine pushiness to them. Has being an ENTJ woman caused you issues in your life? Having to tone yourself down a bit to not intimidate people? And I guess the inevitable follow-up question to that is, what advice would you give to other women that have this personality type?
Okay, this is such a thoughtful question. Absolutely. The female stereotype is like feminine, be feminine, right? And I have masculine TE at the top, which is just very punchy, aggressive, forcing the logic on the outside world. Think of logic. So whether you're TI or TE is just a block banger. It wants the logic to fit. It wants things to make sense. It's like a perfect puzzle really locks in when you have really good, solid reasons. That's sort of like the logic. It clicks, it works, it makes sense. You have good abilities to make those things make sense. The more sound logic, the better. It's just a beautiful feeling. I love it when things all click together logically, right? And then with the TE, so those that are extroverted thinking are going to be constantly like taking the blocks, if you will, and just smashing them against the heads of the outside tribe. Does that work? Does that work? Does that work? Just very like, if it doesn't work for that guy, and it doesn't work for that guy, and it doesn't work for that guy, it's not good logic. Like just the tool, I need a better tool, And I'm willing to throw down a tool if the majority of the tribe, this is how TE works, if the majority of the tribe it didn't work for. From the outside world, it can absolutely be seen as a very aggressive, punchy, shovey, it's removing the emotion from it. So it becomes this almost like shoving shield of logic in people's faces. And it's just absolutely abusive. It is so abusive. It's a question asker. The TE is an annoying question asker. You know, that idiot kid in the front of the class going, what does this mean? What is that? You're just constantly asking things from the outside world, wanting things to work, wanting things to make sense for everyone. If you're doing that on a constant basis, right, and you're completely not aware of it, you'll get the ping back or negativity from the outside environment. And then with the TE, because the TE wants and seeks validation, that's the human need. FE and TE both do this. The TE wants validation for its logical ideas, right? When you get that shoved back from the outside world, that they're like, I don't like that. That feels weird. If you're constantly building up your muscles of logic and shoving on the outside world of making things make sense, when you get negativity in a weaker muscle, and for me in this case, it's feminine FI, it's so hard to process that function because you're not really good at dealing with the positive and negative, the dark and the light of that demon function. One thing that absolutely has changed my life, just completely turned everything around for me, is that I started becoming responsible for my emotions, whether they were positive or negative. So it became a whole process of getting more conscious of my emotions, getting more conscious of an emotional hit. Ooh, that hurt. That feels bad. I was very unconscious of my emotions. I had no idea that I liked or didn't like something. I was very, very, very unaware of that. The more that I got conscious of that, then I started bringing them out to the light, and then I would go through a whole process of how do I resolve this? If I'm responsible, if I'm the owner of these emotions, whether they're positive or negative, I now have to actually process them. Are they true? Are they accurate? Is this real in reality? Is this really an actually negative hit or not? And then actually creating an action plan for it. So it might be that I actually need to do something about it. It might be that I need to actually change something about it, or that I don't change something about it. Like say you get hit by somebody telling you, I think you suck, whatever, just some negative ping from the outside world. Being able to take responsibility for that darkness, the dark and the light of the emotional realm, and being like, okay, I can change that. I should change that. I can now have the ability to process that emotion instead of coming out, shoving, going, you don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make sense. You're dumb. Whatever logic thing you can throw at somebody. You're an idiot, Then you can take that shield, that very masculine logic shield, put it down, and then be able to process the emotions, positive and negative. The more that I have owned the hell out of my own emotional state, the more I have gotten good at being able to know when it's not the right timing to shove logic blocks at people, because now I can use my emotions to connect with others, because that's really needed as well in the outside world. Like I was such a robot, being such a logicer that no one can actually connect. Great, you're the smartest person in the room. No one can connect to you because no one knows how you feel, and no one can feel back with you. Us, those that have FI, it's like we need to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes emotionally, because all we want to do is like, I want to make something work for you. That's what the TE wants to do. I want to make something work for you, and then you're responsible for your emotions, But the more that we can make ourselves vulnerable and actually feel with someone else, feel what someone else is feeling from our own FI perspective, then you can now actually make something work for them. That's how you'll actually get a much better logical circle. You have to have the balance of the emotional side and the logical side. And that's just been absolutely life-changing. But it only came from being able to own the darkness and the light of my own personal emotions. Being able to accept those, work with them, process them. It's absolutely changed my life. And a lot of it was just getting that consciousness, taking the responsibility, and then letting myself be able to flow back and forth is life-changing, just unbelievably life-changing. I now love my TE. I don't resent it. I don't hate that it is constantly logic blocking, because I know when to use it. I know when to turn it off, So yeah, that one's been life-changing. Really great question. Thanks, Nathan.
I think a lot of people, including myself, become interested in your personality typing system because of both you and Dave and the interplay between both of you in the videos. Although you do both mention it in fragments, can you tell us the story of how you first met Dave, how you got into a relationship with him, and how you both ended up working on this mission you have of elevating personality theory from the realms of pseudoscience and subjectivity?
Dave and I have known each other for a really long time, since 2002, 2003, something like that. We were friends in friends group, and Dave had done so well for himself with his RC business online. Like, he had millions of views on YouTube. I was a wedding photographer. I was a fine art film photographer and had a very successful business, but I had no idea how to own and manage the marketing side. On a whim was like, let's call up Dave and start, asking him questions on how to manage SEO. I think it was some dumb question at the time. And then we got on the phone, and it was just like, it was like talking to the other half of my brain. You think about like consciousness, right? And you think about sort of elevating the different parts of your mind and being able to access different parts of your brain. And of course, we started discovering this a lot later of like why that was so like sparky. He's my exact opposite. But it was very weird. Like, I'd never even thought of like love at first sight, that kind of thing. This is me, but this is the other side of me. So there became a very like scientific connection. Like, it felt very much like magnetic, just instant magnetic. This is who I should be talking to all the time, forever. Every time we got on the phone, it was like talking 5 hours. And it was really funny because I had no idea. I was just talking about business, completely unaware of my emotional state. Finally, like randomly one night, it was, this is how we talk about it, like shoving your emotions into a cauldron. Just shove them, and keep the lid on there and don't let them out. You need good reasons for your emotions, so just shove those down in there. And just one night, it was like just an explosion in my brain where I was just like, I think I'm falling in love with you. And it just, it was like, where did that come from? Just completely out of the blue, demon functions, just so bizarre. We were using the Myers-Briggs stuff in some of our marketing online because all of our customers inside our RC community the majority were ISTJs, and we didn't think like them at all. I don't have SI. I don't think in that very detailed, organized format. The more we worked with that understanding of, okay, our customers think in this way, and the more we actually built products for those customers, the more we got results. Whether science believed it or not, there were real patterns happening in reality. We started up the Dave Superpowers channel just to basically hold that space in the YouTube realm. We weren't really planning on fully getting started yet, but our lives sort of chaotically kind of broke apart once we started realizing we need to use this information for our own selves. We need to stop and actually own our own demons, is what we were calling them, because just the way people talked about their demon functions as if it was a demon that would come out of nowhere. They didn't know, literally me talking about FI, had no idea where it came from, outside of body experience, that kind of thing. We started dealing with it in our own home. But the more we pushed towards actually owning these parts, the more parts revealed themselves. I think it was the first thing that showed up that started us tumbling down the hill of pushing actually towards objectivity of this was when we connected the Tony Robbins human needs to the actual cognitive functions. So like significance connecting to DI, certainty connecting to OI, and variety, OE, validation, DE. So if you're a decider, extroverted, whether you're FE or TE, you're going to be seeking validation, and that is your core human need. Or if you're DI, you're going to be seeking significance, whether you're TI or FI, and that is your core human need. And so all of these parts, we started really owning very intensely each part, and then every single part had a binary coin to them. And then once we decided to start playing the game of blind testing, that's what changed everything. When we decided to go, okay, I'm going to type this person, I'm going to be in this room, you type this person, you be in that room, we started recognizing that these patterns were actually happening in reality. And the more that we could own the patterns in reality, the better our consistency would get of being able to type the same person. Now, this took us years. This doesn't happen right off the bat. Not just what are the patterns, what are the binary coins, it was also getting the skill to be able to actually interpret the person's information that they're saying, because you could misinterpret something. And by the way, if the person was similar to your type, you would misinterpret and see them as somebody different because you hadn't solved your own internal issues. So that was a whole nother thing that like exploded. It became an entire process where we realized that owning the biases in our own selves, key, number one. And then also just obsessively playing the game of I have to be able to get the same type as my partner consistently over time. Because we would get like 7 in a row, and then just one of us would type the person way upside down, and we're like, not good enough. We need to keep pushing towards actually consistently doing this over time. So either we don't understand the binary coins well enough, or we our own selves were in an off state. So it's like a whole game that we started playing. Once we got the whole code, it seemed to settle after we got 512, which very much made sense. Once you look at it, it's actually very similar to even the genetic layout, where it's like 3 and then like 1. It's just very, very fascinating stuff. So now it feels like it was this thing that got kind of put on our laps, and we feel like responsible to get this to, you know, quote unquote science, basically a third party that can take this to the next level, even long after Dave and I are gone. So of course we're teaching the classes, and of course we're teaching operators that are going to be here so they can do the same stuff that we're doing, going through that bias training so that we can pass this on. That's basically it. So that's our goal now. Thanks so much for having me do this. I think this is great. I think what you guys are doing on your channel is so cool. You can cut this off from here, but I love you guys. Lou, you're fantastic. You're wonderful. Nathan, you're fantastic. Very, very, very fascinating to watch. You do a great job. Love you guys. All right. Bye.